Welcome to Pharmacist and Drugs. Like, share and subscribe this channel for interesting healthcare content. You need to hear this if you're a healthcare professional or a patient. Welcome to our deep dive into some of the most controversial and impactful scandals in the pharmaceutical industry. Now, you might be thinking, why are we talking about this? Isn't healthcare depressing enough? And you'd be right, it absolutely is. But it's also a $1.3 trillion industry. And when an industry that big starts throwing its weight around, well, let's just say it's enough to make you reach for the over-the-counter antacids. Today, we'll uncover the dark truths behind these stories and their far-reaching consequences. We'll explore how corporate greed, regulatory failures, and a shocking disregard for human life have led to devastating outcomes for patients worldwide. Buckle up, everyone. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Let's start with a story that's sadly become all too familiar, the opioid crisis. At the heart of this epidemic lies Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, and their incredibly aggressive marketing tactics. Now, when I say aggressive, I mean they made pharmaceutical reps look like they were auditioning for the Wolf of Wall Street. But instead of selling penny stocks, they were pushing highly addictive painkillers. Purdue, owned by the Sackler family, downplayed the addictive nature of OxyContin like it was a minor inconvenience, like forgetting to take out the recycling. They assured doctors and patients that it was a safe and effective treatment for pain, even pushing it for everyday aches and pains. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The result? Millions of people became addicted and overdoses skyrocketed. We're talking about a public health crisis of staggering proportions. It's like Purdue threw a lit match on a dry haystack and then acted surprised when the whole thing went up in flames. And what did Purdue do? Well, they did what any respectable corporation on the verge of destroying countless lives would do. They denied, they delayed, and they ultimately filed for bankruptcy in 2019, a classic tale as old as time. But here's the kicker, the Sackler family, they managed to shield billions of dollars in profits. They essentially treated the company like a piggy bank, siphoning off money while people were becoming addicted and dying. The lawsuits against Purdue and the Sackler family are still ongoing, but the damage has been done. The opioid crisis is a stark reminder of what happens when profit is prioritized over people's lives. Now, let's move on to a man who needs no introduction, mostly because he's spent an inordinate amount of time inserting himself into any conversation related to pharmaceuticals. Martin Shkreli, the pharma bro himself. And let me tell you, the only thing bro about this guy is the way he single-handedly set back the public's perception of an entire industry. Shkreli, in his infinite wisdom, decided to raise the price of Daraprim, a life-saving drug used to treat a parasitic infection, by over 5,000% overnight. That's not a typo. He took a drug that cost $13.50 a pill and jacked it up to $750. Because, and I'm quoting him here, he needed to make a profit. The public outrage was swift and brutal. Shkreli, in a move that surprised absolutely no one, reveled in the negative attention. He became the poster boy for corporate greed, a real-life monopoly man who seemed to think that human lives were just another asset to be traded. But here's the thing about Shkreli, he wasn't some anomaly. He was just a particularly brazen example of a systemic problem in the pharmaceutical industry. The unchecked power of CEOs to set exorbitant prices for life-saving drugs. Shkreli's actions sparked a national conversation about drug pricing, a conversation that, frankly, is long overdue. He may be a particularly loathsome individual, but he shone a light on a very real issue. Chapter 3. The Vioxx Scandal, Merck's deadly cover-up. Next up, we have Merck & Company, a pharmaceutical giant that found itself in hot water over its drug Vioxx, a painkiller that was supposed to be a miracle cure for arthritis. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Merck, in their infinite wisdom, decided that the best way to sell their new wonder drug was to downplay, you guessed it, the potentially fatal side effects. We're talking heart attacks, strokes, the whole 9 yards. Internal documents later revealed that Merck knew about the risks associated with Vioxx all along. They even had data suggesting that the drug was linked to an increased risk of heart problems. But did they share that information with the public? Did they hell? Instead, they launched a massive marketing campaign, pushing Vioxx on doctors and patients alike. They even paid celebrities to endorse the drug, because nothing says trustworthy medication like a celebrity endorsement. It was only after thousands of people had heart attacks and thousands more died that Merck finally pulled Vioxx from the market. The lawsuits, as you can imagine, came pouring in. The Vioxx scandal was a major wake-up call, highlighting the deadly consequences of putting profits before people. It showed just how far some companies are willing to go to protect their bottom line, even if it means putting lives at risk. Chapter 4. Theranos, the blood test. That was actually just a bloodbath for investors. Let's move on to a scandal that feels like it was ripped straight from a bad Silicon Valley startup pitch. Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes. Holmes, a college dropout with a penchant for black turtlenecks, promised to revolutionize blood testing. Theranos claimed to diagnose hundreds of diseases with a single drop of blood. Investors, blinded by the promise of massive profits, poured millions into Theranos. The company was valued at billions, and Holmes became a media darling. Except for one tiny detail, the technology didn't actually work. Those blood tests were about as accurate as a magic 8-ball. It all came crashing down in 2015, when a Wall Street Journal investigation exposed the fraud. Holmes was convicted of fraud and is serving an 11-year prison sentence. Chapter 5. The Global HIV/AIDS Drug Pricing Controversy. A fight for life and affordability. Now, let's shift our focus to a global issue. The exorbitant prices of HIV/AIDS drugs in the late 1990s and early 2000s. This wasn't just a case of corporate greed. It was a matter of life and death for millions of people around the world. When antiretroviral drugs, or ARVs, were first developed, they were hailed as a breakthrough in the fight against HIV/AIDS. These drugs had the potential to turn a death sentence into a manageable condition. There was just one problem: the price tag. Pharmaceutical companies, citing research and development costs, slapped astronomical prices on these life-saving medications. The cost of treatment was far beyond the reach of most individuals, particularly those in low-income countries hit hardest by the epidemic. It was a moral crisis of epic proportions. People were dying not because there wasn't a treatment, but because they couldn't afford it. It was as if pharmaceutical companies had built a lifeboat in the middle of a humanitarian crisis and then charged exorbitant fares to board. But then something incredible happened. People fought back. Activists, patients, and governments around the world mobilized, demanding access to affordable treatment. They challenged patents, pressured pharmaceutical companies, and raised awareness about the issue on a global scale. And slowly, things began to change. Generic versions of ARVs became available, driving down prices and expanding access to treatment. It was a hard-fought victory, a testament to the power of collective action in the face of corporate greed. Outro. The fight continues. Demanding accountability from Big Pharma. These stories, as infuriating and disheartening as they are, serve as a stark reminder of the need for accountability and regulation in the pharmaceutical industry. We need stronger oversight, stricter regulations, and a fundamental shift in priorities from profit to people. Because when it comes to healthcare, it shouldn't be about squeezing every last penny out of people who are sick and desperate. It should be about ensuring that everyone has access to the life-saving medications they need, regardless of their income or zip code. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analyses of important issues. And the next time you see a pharmaceutical ad that feels a little too good to be true, remember, it probably is.